One of Piaget's main contributions to our understanding of how children develop is his stage theory of development. Piaget suggested that we all develop through 4 different stages: the sensory motor stage, the pre-operational stage, then the concrete operational stage, and finally the formal operational stage. Now, what Piaget suggested is that there were key attainments in each of these stages, and that caused us to think in fundamentally different ways in each and every stage. Let's first look at the sensory motor stage. In this stage, Piaget suggested that infants learn through their senses, the things they see, the things they hear, the things they taste, the things that they touch. One of the key attainments in this stage is object permanence, and this illustrates that quite nicely. The idea of object permanence is that before a certain age, if an infant can't see or hear or taste or touch something, they can't think about it. They're tied to their sensory experience. As an example, with a young infant, take a toy that they're playing with and hide it under a blanket. They can watch you do it. They can watch you take the toy and place it under a blanket. Even though they saw you do it, and even though they might see a toy-shaped bump under the blanket, they won't look for the toy. Because they can't see it, to them, it's ceased to exist. They're unable to think about things that they can't currently experience. This is also why peekaboo works. You're in front of an infant, you put your hands in front of your face, and then you move your hands away and you say peekaboo, and they're genuinely surprised that you're there again. Well, they saw you there. They saw you just put your hands in front of your face and then move them away. Why are they surprised? Because if they can't see it, they can't think about it. In the sensory motor stage, young children's thinking is tied to their sensory experience. The next stage is the pre-operational stage. One of the key attainments, and attainments is a tricky word here, is egocentrism. Now, the reason I say it's tricky is because we actually lose our egocentrism in this stage. Piaget suggested that we're all born egocentric, but he doesn't mean egocentric in the same way as if we call someone egocentric. What Piaget meant is we're born with an inability to understand that other people have different ideas, beliefs, feelings than we have. So let me give you an example. Say you tell a child this story. So Sam walks into the kitchen and Sam's father is in the kitchen and he says, "I want a lolly from the pantry." And the father says, "No, you can't have a lolly. We're about to eat dinner." So Sam walks away. The father needs to step out of the kitchen for a moment, but he knows Sam can be sneaky sometimes. So he knows that Sam might sneak in to grab one of those lollies. So he takes those lollies from the pantry and hides them under the kitchen sink so that Sam wouldn't know where to look for them, and then leaves the kitchen. Sam comes back in and is going to go hunting for a lolly. Where does Sam look for that lolly? You ask a child who still has their egocentrism, they'll say, under the kitchen sink. Now, why would they say under the kitchen sink? Because they know it's under the kitchen sink. And if they know, everyone else must know too. They have an inability to understand that other people have different thoughts, understandings, feelings than they have. It's only after we lose our egocentrism that we'd understand that Sam would look in the pantry, because that's the last place that Sam knew that they were. The next stage is the concrete operational stage. And in this stage, we see children start to be able to use logic, but their use of logic is actually really limited. It's limited to concrete situations, hence the term concrete operational stage. One of the key attainments in this stage is the concept of conservation. Let's use an example of 2 identical balls of Play-Doh. We have 2 identical balls of Play-Doh, and in front of a child who doesn't yet have a concept of conservation, we roll one of those balls of Play-Doh into a sausage-like shape. They watch you do it. You place both balls of Play-Doh back down and you say, do these have the same amount of Play-Doh, or does one have more? A child without a concept of conservation will typically say that the sausage-like shape has more Play-Doh, even though they would say that they had identical amounts beforehand. So they're unable to use their logic abstractly. Instead, what they do is they seize on the most prominent aspect of the situation, that it's longer. And they have all sorts of experience telling them that things that are longer, things that are taller, have more. We see the same sort of thing with glasses of water. Have two identical glasses with the same amounts of water, and any child will say those are the same amounts of water. But now pour one of the glasses into a taller, skinnier glass. Let them watch you do it, and then ask, do they have the same amounts of water, or does one have more? A child without a concept of conservation will say that the taller, skinnier glass has more water. Taller means more, right? It's only in this concrete operational stage that children start to develop this concept of conservation. The last stage is the formal operational stage. And this is the stage where we can start using logic in more abstract ways. It's in this stage that you'll see adolescents start to talk about things like justice and morality. Those things that you can't see, that you can't touch, it requires abstract logic to be able to think about. To give you an example, imagine the following situation. I give you this rule and I want you to follow this rule to its conclusion. If I tell you, you hit a glass with a hammer, the glass will break. John hit a glass with a hammer. What happens? Well, even children not yet in the formal operational stage will say that the glass broke. But what if I give them this? You hit a glass with a feather, the glass breaks. John hit a glass with a feather. What happened? A child not yet in the formal operational stage will typically say that nothing happened. Although I gave them that rule, they're unable to take that rule and apply it to different situations. So what they do is they fall back onto their previous experience. And in their experience, you hit a glass with a feather, nothing happens. Piaget's theory of child development was one of the first to give us a comprehensive understanding of how children think and grow as they age. And it has important implications for educators. If we understand children's abilities as they age, then we can design educational experiences that are more developmentally appropriate.